This week on the Red Sneaker Writers Podcast.
When I am actually doing my creative writing work, I'm in the bathtub. And this is something that goes way back from, it's a place to escape. No one will bug me when I'm in the bathtub, but also I can relax.
Welcome to the Red Sneaker Writers Podcast. News, interviews, and writing tips for people who are serious about having a writing career and want some practical knowledge to help them achieve it. Your host is the nationally best-selling author of more than 50 books, William Bernhardt.
Hello, sneakers. Hey, I hope your 2022 is off to a great start. Of course, you've heard the same news, the same bad news that I have. Inflation rates are skyrocketing in the United States. So here's my suggestion. Stay home and write, says the guy who spent most of the afternoon at the mall with his daughter. But anyway, I'm telling you, stay home and write. I mean, you didn't need that stuff anyway. Bank your money, invest in the future, and finish that book you've been thinking about but not quite getting done. And I am sure this sentiment will be echoed by my sound engineer and cohort, Jesse Ulrich. Jesse, have you been buying more expensive TVs and stuff?
No, and actually today I just saw an article about how much, as a 40-year-old, I should be saving to have $1 million by the time I was 65. It's not great. It's not looking great for me. So.
Okay, now I'm curious. How much do you need to bank to have $1 million in 25 years?
Oh, it was like $3,000 a month.
$3,000 a month?
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying you're starting now from scratch.
Oh, yeah. If you started from zero, yeah, it was like three.
Well, that's attainable.
So, yeah. I'm luckily. I mean, like I have a 401k from an older job, so I've got something. But I should be adding to.
So that's really saying if you have 12,000, well, and you keep adding to it perpetually. But anyway.
Yeah, it's all about starting early, apparently. So
yeah, I guess you're just going to be a sound engineering for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah, I didn't assume my generation was going to get to retire anyway. So
right,
work till
Social Security will be gone. Sorry, but
I never assumed I was getting that. So.
All right, then. Well, I'm going to hold off on my usual introduction of the guest because I'm not entirely sure who it's going to be yet. But when I see a face appear, one person or another, or what the heck, if we have more than one show up, then we'll introduce everybody, right? But one way or another, someone sitting in a well-lit room should be our guest. So I'm just going to hold you in suspense. And first, we will do the news. Well, if you have been paying attention to the news the past 2 days as we record this, even if you're not obsessively focused on publishing world news like I am, you have probably heard this story about the employee of mega Big Five publisher Simon & Schuster, who has pleaded not guilty after being arrested on charges that he posed as literary editors and agents to steal hundreds of authors' work. This is even more astounding a story because for some time, people have known that something hinky was going on, that people's manuscripts were being waylaid, that, all kinds of people, Margaret Atwood and others, had sent manuscripts mysteriously off into cyberspace, but nobody knew what was happening. Well, apparently the FBI has figured it out. A man named Filippo Bernardini, 29, was arrested at JFK Airport and has been charged with allegedly committing wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. And I want to stop and make the point that there is no suggestion whatsoever that Simon & Schuster was at fault in any way. He worked for them. They weren't in on the deal. But the FBI is retaining him without bail on the theory that he is an, quote, overwhelming flight risk. His lawyer, Hannah McCrae, on the other hand, has argued against it. She says that this is a very humbling experience for the defendant and he intends to take it seriously. According to the prosecutors, Mr. Bernardini would allegedly try to gain manuscripts, often by having like an address or an email address that kind of looked like Simon and Schuster, but wasn't quite. Like he would replace the M with an RN, which put close together look a lot like an M that isn't it. So Simon and Schuster becomes this Cernon and Schuster mess. He allegedly impersonated publishing industry individuals to induce authors, including an aforementioned Pulitzer Prize winner, to send him pre-publication manuscripts for his own benefit. The big question, though, is why?
Why? Yeah. What was he getting out of this?
No, he doesn't appear to have leaked the manuscripts on the internet. He doesn't appear to have sold them. He wasn't making ransom demands on the authors.
This would be a terrible novel. This would be a terrible thriller novel. The guy doesn't do anything.
It'd be a great novel, except I would invent a motive that was much worse than any of the ones I just said. I mean, maybe he's just a super fan and he wants to read them before anybody else does.
Yeah,
I don't get it. That's strange. What do you think he was up to? Give me your best theory, Jesse.
I mean, okay. So he wasn't reusing them and saying they were his stories. Right. He wasn't blackmailing them for money, saying, I have your manuscript, I'll release it unless you give me money. It must be a collection thing, a wanting it before everyone else, wanting a version of it before everyone else. That's the only thing I can think of.
I think you may be right. Well, Red Sneaker writers, the takeaway should be obvious. Don't put your manuscript in an email attachment or anywhere in cyberspace unless you know exactly where it's going. Okay, news item number 2, and this has to do with Findaway Voices, which, as you probably already know, is an aggregator or distributor of audiobooks. I've mentioned them in the past. I've used them for many of the books that we publish. They are an alternative to ACX, which was the first of these outfits to handle digital audiobooks. They're, of course, owned by Amazon. Findaway is independent and does offer better rates to people. The disadvantage, or the difference, I should say, between the two in the past has been that ACX had a fleet of narrators signed up. So you could go, if you didn't have somebody to read your book and you didn't want to do it yourself, you could find someone there. In the past, Findaway was great if you had the audio files already, but not so much if you didn't. Well, that has changed because now Findaway is also adding the ability to find narrators for your book and take your book really through all the stages of production. So if you like Findaway, as I do, and you're looking to increase your percentages, that might be an alternative. I will warn you, it may take longer for your book to show up at Amazon if you're not using ACX. I mean, it will, but it may seem that they're kind of dragging their heels, whatever, but, start early and they won't matter that much. Findaway has also added fee splitting, which I think is really convenient too. So if instead of paying your narrator up front, you're going to split the royalties with them, you can set that up right from the get-go. So you don't have to receive checks and then send somebody whatever percentage you've agreed to. Findaway can do it right from the source, which makes life a whole lot simpler. Jesse, what do you think? You've been sound engineer on many audiobooks now. Do you have any feeling about what is the best procedure for Red Sneaker writers to follow here?
I mean, I'm curious if you can split the fees for the editing as well as the narrating, but
would that be good? Would you rather get a percentage than get money up front?
I think I would try it. I would try it once and see what happens.
I mean, if it were a big shot like me, then sure.
But, yeah. Not for one of Barry's books or something, but
I will report that, of course.
Yeah, he's on vacation. It's fine. I would say, I mean, I'm a fan of giving yourself the largest reach possible, and I know that ACX versus Findaway Voices have different reaches,
Mhm.
and I'm always like put it where the most people can see it, and also where it has the chance to cut through sort of the noise. So, you know, it's really, I feel like whatever the author is most comfortable with. So
Well, you touched on another difference actually that I wasn't even thinking about. ACX, you're going to distribute to Amazon, which is, let's face it, Amazon slash Audible. They are the largest seller of audiobooks in the United States, and I think they also send to Apple,
I believe so. Yeah.
but not all the other audiobook aggregators out there and libraries and whatnot. Whereas Findaway will, in fact, send it to everybody on the face of the earth. So you're also going to get a broader reach. You lose some of the advantages of being exclusive with Amazon. But as we talked about last week, the trend does appear to be for indie authors to go wide for the win, right? So this might be another example of that.
What was the other saying? There was
wide
for the win,
is
and
the
then
new black.
yeah, that's terrible. Anyway, okay.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
I
boy.
don't know. We'll let the next guest vote on both of these items. So, anyway, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Our guest was supposed to be Jacqueline Michard tonight, and I don't know what's happened to Jackie. I know she's a wonderful person. I know she would never, I mean, she probably forgot or got some bad information, but I will find out and I will schedule her for another time. So, you will get to hear from her as you have on previous podcasts in the future. But in a pinch, it's always useful to have another writer in the house because there was not enough time to like send out an SSS. Fortunately, I share a home with, you think I'm going to introduce my cat now, but no, I'm going to introduce my wife, Lara Bernhardt, the award-winning and extraordinary author of the Wantland books series and also Shadow of the Taj. Lara, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Hi. Hi. I'm happy to be here. Look at this. I have something that has Jackie's name on it. Shadow of the Taj. Oh, if I can get in the frame. Look, she blurbed it. Jacqueline Michard.
It's a small world.
So we sort of heard from her.
Well, she's here in spirit then. That was a very generous endorsement she gave for your first and superb novel. Did you catch in the warm-up when I said, I'm sure there's some author sitting in a well-lit place? That was me telling you to turn on the lights upstairs where you are.
I caught that. I was listening.
So yep. Let's talk about your books, Lara, and then we're going to talk about the secrets of writing, because I feel that, do you feel that you know the secrets of writing, the tips that everybody wants to hear about?
Well, I'll do my best.
Okay. Well, here, before we get to that, then we'll start with a question that, let's face it, is what everybody really wants to know. What is it like living with another author in the house?
I would say it can be helpful because you have someone else in the house that understands. You might not like it if I tell you I can't play a game right now because I'm right in the middle of writing a chapter, but you will accept that. You're tolerant of it.
Yeah.
You understand that I have to work around my other work schedule and carve my time out when I can. So that's
that
nice.
Is something, because we hear at conferences and in a small group work, people complaining that people won't leave them alone, or people, are jealous of your time and whatnot. All right. But now we're going to get to the down part, which would be what? The downside.
Hey, Karen. Hi.
We just saw a comment come up in the chat box, and that's what Lara's responding to. So what's the downside of being with an author in the house? Oh, that's so good. Okay. I won't make you think of something.
I don't know. I
have a more specific question.
Okay.
Do you guys fight over like the best like writing/reading spots in the house, or do you have multiple?
No, we have our own. We have our own spaces.
And I pretty much never get out of the recliner. So that's I mean, I used to, can I tell this? You're going to get mad at me. I used to work at my desk, but when we moved into this place, for reasons that I won't, it's not interesting and it takes too long, but we ended up putting my desk in our bedroom, and I usually get up very early in the morning, so I don't want to turn on the lights. So I've gotten into the habit of going into the living room and sitting at the recline, and now I'm just used to it. So, and you go upstairs, right? She has a whole floor. I have a recliner.
Comfortable. Well, it depends on what I'm doing. So yes, I don't have a recliner, but I have a workspace in another room. So if I'm editing, I would be up here in the workspace working on editing. Secretly, yes, Karen knows where this is going. When I am actually doing my creative writing work, I'm in the bathtub. And this is something that goes way back from, it's a place to escape. No one will bug me when I'm in the bathtub, but also I can relax. I'm not worried about, oh, here we go. I've got a dog trying to get in the
This
screen.
is why I closed the doors.
Yeah, listen, the internet loves animals.
If I closed the doors, they would sit down there and bark. So I had to do what I could. Yeah, I close the doors. I light candles. I have hot tea. It's soothing. It's relaxing. I can't hop up and go start laundry or go clean in the kitchen, or I really just relax and get in the zone the very best when I'm completely isolated like that, and I can relax, and that's where I am most creative. So yes, that's my creative writing time. And then the revising and the editing,
Fantastic.
I can do just about anywhere.
Well, you can probably see the chat box as well as I do. We've exploded since we announced
we already
you as
have
guest.
more questions, like 16 minutes in, than we have in like maybe a total of like 4 episodes.
Right,
So
the last 4
people want to know
something.
about
The
you,
internet,
Laura.
Oh,
the internet loves you, sweetheart.
Okay.
So James is asking,
That's nice.
what's your writing routine? You kind of already touched on that, but describe it. What's your writing routine? You've done a bunch of books now. How?
You know what? This is probably pretty good, because I'm sure you've heard about Bill's writing routine, and his is get up and get started first thing. We are now early risers, whether we like it or not, because Bustifer is a very persistent alarm clock. So we're awake bright and early, and once he's fed and cared for, I get ready for my day job. So those of you who aren't fortunate enough just yet to be stay-at-home writers full-time, this might be helpful to you. I do my work. I do the work I love and I'm passionate about within my day job time. And it's not easy. I know it's not, but I always tell people, if I can do it, you can. So I'm hoping that this is inspirational to everyone. I do have a day job from 8 to 5 every day. My lunch break, I'm absolutely, if I'm not having to run errands, I am holed up in a separate room, away from everybody, trying to get some writing done, some editing done, maybe reviewing what I wrote the night before. When I come home in the evenings, sometimes I might get some time to take a look at that. It really depends. And then my weekends are probably, what would you say, Bill? 8 to 12 hours of editing and
until
writing?
I bug you and start saying, hey, let's play a board game, which I just want to point out is
Until
my charitable trying to save your sanity by dragging you away from your work. It's for you, honey.
I appreciate that. But no, it probably is good. It probably is good. So there's 2 sides to that coin. Yeah, because he wants my time too. And I appreciate that. I'm happy I have a husband who wants to spend time with me. I do appreciate that. But he will come after a while and decide that I should take a break. And that can be hard, if I'm right in the middle of something, because I don't have as much writing time during the week. And I do get pretty selfish about that time on weekends and holidays, which means I don't get a weekend and holiday, right? We writers are probably working 7 days a week, unfortunately.
Particularly for indie or self-published authors, or it's anybody who's running their own business. There's always or you work from home, there's always something you could be doing. Would you agree, Jesse?
Yeah, I haven't had a weekend in 2.5 years now. So,
right.
Because you feel
that
you feel
sounds
bad,
familiar.
like
I feel
relaxing or taking a night off.
Yes. And when you do that, yeah, exactly. There's that guilt of I should be working, but we do have to relax. So I do have someone that's tugging at me when it's time to maybe take a break for a couple of hours, and pulls me away and makes me focus on something else, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. You can't be completely disconnected from the world and be a good writer. You need to maintain something else.
All right. Now, Betsy is asking, what's next for Kimberly and Sterling? This, of course, is a reference to your series of books that started with the Wantland Files.
Yes. So if you finished Halloween and Hannibal, you've seen the prologue to the next one. They're in New Orleans. They are... it's going to be Christmas time. The title of it is Christmas Spirit, and they're in New Orleans, and we're going to find out a lot about Kimberly. If you're keeping up with the series, which I assume everyone is, or they wouldn't be asking about it, you know that she has found out very recently that she has history in New Orleans, and she's about to make a huge discovery, and she's going to learn more about her family, and a couple big shocks are coming up, and it's I guess every time I'm writing one, I think it's the best book I've ever written so far, but I'm really liking this one, and I hope that it is a crowd pleaser, because I'm really enjoying it.
Betsy, your questioner, of course, is Betsy Kulikowski, author of the Veritas Codex series. And I mentioned that because you can see her follow-up comment. She's saying that Lauren and Rowan, her series characters, need to run into your series characters in New Orleans.
Sure.
What? Crossover.
Yeah,
crossover.
Crossovers are real big these days. Yeah.
And then we can bring in all of my series characters, and we have an epic.
Yeah.
That should happen more in serialized books. There should be crossovers.
Someone would have to die for you to come in, though, Bill.
It doesn't have to be a regular.
Somebody would have to die. Yes, and then one of the regulars would have to be accused of the murder for some reason. Oh my gosh, I'm already writing it in my head.
Well, you know, this year we did the Christmas book. What?
She's in.
Yeah,
Betsy is in.
We did the Christmas book that had everybody's series characters, but they didn't meet each other. Maybe that's what needs to happen next. Or maybe it doesn't have to be Christmassy. All right, another question from you. This may be a little intimate, but I'm going with it anyway. Karen wants to know, do you still write in the tub? I can answer this, but I'll let you.
Yes. Well, I did see her comment and kind of address that. Yes, I do still write in the bathtub when I'm brainstorming, creative thinking. Really need to get in the zone, need to be able to think and let my mind wander and go to spiritual, otherworldly places.
Are you writing in a book? Or are you like typing on a laptop? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
I was curious how that worked.
No trumbo. Okay. No. No trumbo. It's longhand with pen and spiral. Yep. I think Bill gets tired of my stacks of spirals, but I do
feel
keep
you, Bill.
them.
I feel you, Bill, on that one.
Just don't understand. I can't even remember the last time. You know, I did once upon a time write fiction longhand, like when I worked at the law firm, because, you know, if you didn't want to be too ostentatious about it, then you wrote on a legal pad, and people assumed you were doing what you were supposed to do, but not now. That's too slow.
But now looking busy in the office is typing.
That's exactly right.
So I have my spiral there off to the side, and I can be typing. So let me give you my spin on this. My rough draft is my handwritten work in the spiral. When I'm going back through that, and if I get some quiet time, or if I'm using my lunch break and I shift over to that, as I'm reading along, of course, I'm getting a feel for whether it's working or not, if I've skipped something important. So basically, by the time the whole thing is typed from beginning to end, it's now my second draft. Like, I've already done some revising and fixing in that process. So in my opinion, it's a good thing. It might seem tedious and lengthy.
If it works for you, then it works.
To someone else, but that's works. It's what works for me.
I realize now that I just dated myself in a big way, because of course, today, I remember when, back in the day, when I was a baby associate at the law firm, and I suggested that maybe we all ought to have these new cool things called laptop computers on our desks in the office. I may have had ulterior motives. And I remember the managing partner saying, Bill, lawyers don't type, secretaries type. Well, today, of course, every lawyer on earth has a computer on
Everyone
their desk,
types.
and nobody calls their assistant secretaries anymore. But it's been a while.
If you're like me and you need your technology, even if you want to write something down, you buy one of these sort of e-ink notepads.
Oh wow!
Really?
Which you
Oh my
literally
goodness.
write on it, like, and it shows up. But it's like it's an
Oh.
ebook pretty much.
And it converts itself automatically to type?
No, it stays your handwriting. It can convert some things like numbers or symbols, but for my actual handwriting, it either can't read it or it doesn't do that. I'm not sure yet. My handwriting's terrible, so but
You young folk with your newfangled
listen,
gadgets.
why spend $5 on something when I can spend hundreds of dollars on something? So
That's right.
because I'm an idiot.
I see James is weighing in saying, that's true. I work in the legal field. I'm not sure what he's saying is true. True that lawyers don't type, or true that everybody's got a laptop on their... James, fill that in. I'm not sure what you're saying. Lara, let's talk about writing. What comes first for you? Characters or plot? I got a stumper.
Characters.
Not much of a
Characters.
stumper, but still. Why characters?
Well, I had to think about it.
Thinking is
Why?
okay.
I can't really answer that, but they do. They come to me. So Kimberly came to me as a character. She sort of grew out of some other ideas that I had, and when I got hit with that one, I got really excited, and I knew that I had something I wanted to work with. And it was from the character that I developed the plot for the whole series, because I was pulling from kind of a series of short stories that I was developing, and realized short stories you can't put them together in a book and hope to sell it unless you're like Stephen King, right? So I wanted to expand them into full stories, but what would be the through line for that? And they all had something to do. They all had a spiritual element, and I turned that into ghosts. And then I realized a psychic, this character that I'd thought up, this psychic would be the through. And why? Well, she's investigating them. Oh, she has a show. The whole thing developed from the character that I first thought of. I don't think I've told anyone this at all, so I'm announcing it here on the podcast. I have my idea for my next series when this one draws to a close. And again, the character came to me first, and then I'm starting to build the series off of that idea. So I know who she is, and I know what she's going to go through, and now I'm starting to plot out the stories that will get her through her journey. And even in my women's fiction, aside from the series, it's the same in my women's fiction. The characters come to me first, and then the story sort of develops around them. Maybe the initial thought of what they're going to go through, but for me, it's all about the character.
When are we going to see this new series?
We'll have to finish Wantland Files first.
Okay.
I'm on book 5, and there's 2 more after this, so it's going to be a little
7.
while, but it's really good. I'm excited.
What about the
it.
next women's fiction? When do we get to see Red Rain, or whatever it ends up being called?
Agent has had a few requests for the manuscript, but we're still in a holding pattern on that. If nothing comes of that, then it'll either be this year or next year, one way or another, late this year or sometime next year.
So at this point, you've got what, 6 books under your belt?
Or 5 actually,
well, 5 in print,
published, right?
Yeah,
4 in the
6
series,
that you've written,
yes.
And working on a 7th.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the...
And my next women's fiction too is in progress.
I was counting that. So what are the things you've learned along the way? What are the things you know now that you didn't know when you sat down to write that first book?
The very first one? Egads. That's more information than we have time to talk about right now. I didn't know anything when I first started writing, except that I loved loved books, and I wanted to write one, and I had a good idea for one. So it's been probably 15 years. That's a lot of stuff that I've learned along the way. And the industry keeps changing too. So you keep learning and adapting.
And you did a lot of things early on
changes.
to educate yourself. You came to
Early
conferences
on.
and
It's
whatnot.
true. Okay.
But
So,
since then,
yes,
since you've been publishing, what are the things you've picked up on?
Since I've been publishing, what have I learned? Since I very first started publishing, I learned that I'm actually kind of liking doing my own publishing. I've gotten kind of protective of my books, and I won't hand it over to just any publisher.
She's speaking as someone who has done work for traditional publishers, I just want to point out.
Yes, and I had kind of some not great experiences that route. And then the last one, I just decided I was done. I took back rights to a book, and I repackaged it, redid it, republished it, and it's a better looking book than what I got from what we would call a traditional established publisher. And I don't think that should ever happen. So I've gotten a little bit possessive, and I've learned that I actually like doing some of the design work. I like every step of it. I like the writing, I like the editing, and now I find that I even like putting together the actual product and sending it out into the world. It was scary the first time, but I do find that I enjoy it. I look forward to the day this will be my full-time job, when I get up in the morning and this is what I do all day, not squeezing it in around other things.
Well, you like being in control of the whole process, which is understandable.
I like being in control of the process. It's true. And I've also learned that's not the case. I have authors who come to me wanting help because they don't want to be fully in charge of that. They want to do other things. I know someone who's really, really, really good at the marketing of all things, which I find scary and unpleasant. But she's really good at that. So she comes to me for help with other things in the publishing, so not everybody likes it. I'm learning that we all have different things we like in the process.
We got another question. Somebody's asking, do you talk about your book with Bill before you finish your book? Bill, do you talk with Lara before you finish your current work? You want me to go first, or should you?
Sure, you go first. I've been talking a lot.
As to, do I talk with Lara before you finish? It depends on what you mean by finish. Do I talk to her about it like before I start writing? Rarely, occasionally. And sometimes I think you don't even know what I'm asking or why I'm asking. Like, you may be, I used to do research from people without really telling them I was researching a book. I just ask a question. I don't really like to talk about it before I've at least got a draft down, because I don't feel like I really know what it is, much less know well enough to talk about it. But I absolutely always send it to you before I publish, or really even get close to publishing. What about you?
We don't know, not beforehand. When I'm just working on outlining it and coming up with the ideas, no. I think for both of us, this is pretty common. It's no. There have been a couple of times that maybe we will chat about something, just talking through a problem. Maybe we get stumped somewhere, or maybe something's not quite working. And maybe when we're out for a walk, we'll just kind of visit about it. And a lot of times for me, even just if I'm just saying, well, I'm having trouble with, and I start talking about it. And then even if he says nothing, I will go, but wait a second, I could do this. Sometimes just talking it out will help. And there's been a time or two where he's come to me kind of with the same thing. I think we probably help each other most when it's all done. We definitely send each other the finished product at the end. And
except it's not finished.
I think rely on each other. Yeah. So it's
a fifth draft.
Okay, that's technically not finished, but the draft is finished, and we've moved into the revising process, editing process, and at that point, I think we rely pretty heavily on each other. And
I think we talked.
I definitely always like to get his thumbs
I think we
up.
talked more about the marketing and the everything else. Then of course we both also run
That's a valid
presses, and
point.
there's
Yes.
formatting and distribution and covers and cover copy and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff.
If one of us hears about something new and useful, we'll definitely share it with the other one. Try to keep each other abreast of what's happening there.
Okay, another burning question: plotter or pantser? Which are you?
Plotter.
Oh yeah, well,
Plotter.
that's because you worked with me, right? No, you always were.
It's true. No, that very first book, all those years ago when I wrote it, some of these people have probably heard this already. Some of the people listening have probably heard this already, but I wrote my first book not knowing how to write a book. So I did approach it more like a pantser. I didn't know any better. And so I wrote a huge long story, and then I went back to the beginning and started reading it, and it wasn't good. And I could recognize that it wasn't good, but I didn't know why it wasn't good. So that's when I started going to meetings and conferences and retreats, trying to learn about the craft of it. And that's when I realized I had to go back and rewrite the whole thing, and I had to bring it into alignment with what's expected of a novel. It's
you're a planner.
It's just
now.
faster and easier, and how you keep my thoughts together. So at this point, going back to my process, when I first have an idea, like for a series, I'm going to have that starting page, what some people like to call their Bible or whatever, but it's my world building page. And then when I get to the actual book, I'm going to outline that. And I have notes to myself to try to keep from having any inconsistencies, because these things span a lot of years, and you have to make sure somebody's eye color doesn't change or something like that along the way. And I'll make pretty extensive notes about that. And then I launch into the outline itself. And it might very well shift, but at least, and it definitely expand on it. The story grows as you start to write it. You have more ideas and you get going, and
I don't know.
It might not be the very story that I started with, but that's how you get to the end.
I don't know about you, but I not only write every day, I revise my outline every day. I'm not exaggerating. I start at the outline reading what supposedly comes next and edit that a little bit. And then after I've written, I go back to the outline and think about what's coming next and mess with that a little bit. So yeah, I've got an outline, but I'm continually adding and subtracting from it.
I probably don't tweak my outline that much, but I think maybe just because once I get going, I use what's helpful and build off of it. If something radical happens, then yes, I'm going to go back, or I might move something up or down. Yeah. That said, I was actually just in the outline today modifying something. So it's not every day, but I do it.
There you go. One last question, Lara. If you could give writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
One piece of advice.
Yep, you only get one. So make it good.
I don't like this question.
You want me to make it two?
You're going to tell them not to quit. So let me think of something else really good. Piece of advice.
Well, what do you think?
Be open. Go ahead.
What do you think was the critical factor in you actually becoming a published writer? Because I think it's that you wouldn't quit. It wasn't easy.
It's too many, but you're going to say that.
Quit.
You're going to say be persistent and don't quit. I want to use something more practical. So write your outline. Be open to suggestions. When you are fortunate enough to have someone who will read that for you and be able to offer you some good, helpful critique, but also stay true to your story. Like, you don't want to just change every little thing that somebody starts nitpicking at.
I think that's a great point.
Find a really good, reliable support person that can help you with that.
Yeah, don't lose sight of what it was you wanted to write and accomplish in the first place, right? You want it to be good.
Oh, yeah. Make all of that sound good, Bill.
Be true to your story. Hey, Lara, thanks for pitching in and helping out tonight. I really appreciate it.
It was all my pleasure. I'm always happy to chat about writing with you and with all of your lovely listeners. I love, love, love writers, and we've made so many fantastic connections. So thank you.
Thanks, Lara. Hey, everybody, just a few final notes. If you are writing or aspiring to write, and if not, I don't know why you would be listening to this unless you're part of Lara's fan club, which is obviously huge, judging from our chat box. If you are aspiring to write or writing, join our Facebook group, Red Sneaker Writers, so you can get daily updates. I also have a Red Sneaker newsletter that usually goes out every other weekend. It's completely free. All you got to do is send me your email address and I will add you to the list. My email address is willbern@gmail.com. That's willbern@gmail.com. All right. Well, Lara's already kind of forecast this, hasn't she? But as promised, sneakers. Until next time, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. See you next time.